Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is FistofFury6092, and welcome to answer questions for the fans. I wrote it on a piece of paper here, and basically, I can't tell him the name on here because I don't want, if he wants his name on here or not, I don't know, but let's see. Basically, he asked me this. He said, well, Fury, I'm getting sick and tired of playing in high-tier matches. I would like you to also please do a review on all the tanks that have premium matchmaking. Please, so thanks to yours truly, ... I'm just going to say ... for that person. Well, now people are wondering, what do you talk about premium matchmaking? Well, premium matchmaking is tanks that only play specific tiers. Like, for example, if you play a 6, it goes up to tier 8. But with premium matchmaking, that 6 will play up to a 7. It's basically only going one tier higher or none tier higher, because there's a couple of tanks that stay in their own tiers. So we're going to review that right now. And also, first, before we do that, I want to do a quick update. Yes, I know there's a lot of tanks coming out. A lot of tanks have came out. We have the new German VK. We have the new French heavies. We have the ISU 130, which people asked me to review on that, see if it was worth it keeping it, or the French heavy, is it better than the HMH version, or the VK, is it worth buying it? I am doing all these. It's just the problem is the time I do these videos, it's hard because I have to do acting, I gotta do dress up, do some funny jokes in there, and do some other things, but it will take time to do. I mean, I can't do every tank that just came out. So, without further ado, here's my little review for you guys of all the premium tanks that have different matchmaking than the regular tanks.
Now, the first tank in the game that has premium matchmaking is the T7 cars. Now, there's a total, I believe, 8 of them, if I believe. There's the original one. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, okay, sorry, 7. I was a little one off, but there's so many of them that you can understand. My personal thing I like about these tanks, they're actually my personal favorite for a tier 2. They have the autoloader 10 clip, basically shooter, and it's one of the 4 out of the premium tanks and 4 of the regular tanks. There's actually one regular one that stays in its own tier, but there's actually 3 more that actually stays in their own tier. So that's pretty cool, and I actually like them. They're pretty fun to play with, moving around and stuff really fast, but I don't want to get into too much detail on it because I want to do reviews on it to actually tell you about it. But it's a pretty fun tank to have. So skipping through all this. Next we have the Ripper and the E4. They're basically Shermans. Basically, they only play up to tier 6. They don't play up to 7s, making it probably the only Shermans in the game that play in their one tier higher, because the Fury, the other Shermans, the E2 and all that play up to an 8. These actually play up to a 6, and the M4 Shermans play up to it. Now there's another Sherman too, but I'm talking about Americans, but I'll show you later on. These are very good to play if you want to play with if you want to play a medium and you want to take out weak armored and stuff, but you still have problems with it. You still have to go up against OIs with it, and OIs are really heavily armored and you can't really play them. These tanks were back in the old days of, before the Japanese heavies came and all that. These were back in the old traditional days. But if you want to play a nice little Sherman tank with a good angle armor, good gun for getting through a lot of weak armored those tanks, this is a really good tank. It's not bad at making money, in my opinion. And it's, all in all, pretty fun. And the same thing goes with the original design. This is the E4. It's the same basic thing, just without the permanent camouflage. Well, actually, to tell you the truth, I think they don't have permanent camouflage. Yep, I thought so. They don't have permanent camouflage. I've been talking about the painting face. If you want one with no face, there you go. Now the E3, Tier 7 of the T23 E3, is probably one of those most annoying tanks you can have in your garage. It shoots really fast, able to do as much damage out as fast as possible, but it doesn't do like a lot of damage. It's kind of like it has like a 3-second reload. It basically just shoots out shells really fast at a target. The only thing I like about this tier 7, it only plays up to a tier 8. So it makes it even better to have because you have an annoying shooter for a medium tank. And if you kind of like the T20 kind of thing, where it has that kind of weak-ass gun, well, not the fully upgraded version, I'm talking about stock version, then you will kind of like this because it's like the Kraft Panther and the T20 had a child. And basically this is what this tank is. I didn't like it too much, but it wasn't my play style. But you actually will like it if you like to shoot at targets really fast. It's not a bad tank to own, but it still has its little flaws and benefits and stuff. Next we have the Super Persian and the Freedom. Both same tanks, just one with permanent camouflage. Now, the Super Persian is basically it's a charge forward tank. Very good at making money. It's one of the top money-making tanks in the game. So it's not a bad tank to have. It has that trollish armor, frontal armor, but it's very slow. Keep the enemy in front, basically kind of tank. Me personally, I think this is fun to play with friends. That will keep you covered. It's actually not a bad tank to make money. However, I didn't like the 90 mil because of the accuracy on the gun, but many people like it, and that's respectably fine. There's tanks out there that people like, and there's people out there that tanks that don't like it. Like, I don't like the 112, which we'll get on later on in the review, but still, it's not a bad tank. I personally like it to make money and stuff. All in all, balanced out tank, and it only plays up to tier 9s, which makes it even better to keep you out of the fucking 10s. So, all in all, not a bad thing to have. Now, the E2. Now, I know it's the T95 E2, but I call it the E2 for short. The E2 is basically like the American, Super Persian. It has the 90 mil, but it has a muzzle brake, making it better to shoot a little bit better at long range. However, though, it has even a stronger head. The machine gun port is the weak spot with a slope angle armor on the whole armor. Enjoy it to playing it now and then, and it's not a bad tank. You just have to maneuver and stuff. It's basically you have to go around flanking, maneuver, all those traditional medium tactics. Not a bad tank to have for American if you want to look at this one too. And it only plays up to a tier 9 like pretty much the Freedom does. Now let's look at the very first one, the T14. The first premium tank in the game that was basically had this first premium matchmaking, and it was the very first in this very wargaming itself. Now, I like this tank, but it's outdated now. I mean, now you got the OI Japanese, it's got the same problem, it's got the Ripper problem, but it has armor, but so many people know its weaknesses, and I will explain that in the review, if you guys want me to review it. But, still not a bad tank to play, but not as terrifying than it did back then. It's an obsolete tank, but not bad playing obsolete. So, I even still play it a little bit, but not rarely anymore. The E1 Super Mutant. Now, this one is a tank that's still being played today because of the balanced out frontal armor. Plays up to tier 9s, has basically that big, huge gun on it. It's basically a 90 mil accuracy, but it still has it. I want to give it good praises, but I didn't really like it that much. But that's my opinion. Why? Because it has so many weak spots, but I will review them later on if you want. If to know how to kill it or know how to defend yourself if you have it. But me personally, I don't like it. It still makes its money. It still does its job as a premium tank. I just don't know. It wasn't my personal favorite. But it only plays up to a tier 9. A lot of people like it. So, yeah, it's fine if you like it, but really not my cup of tea anymore. T28 HTC, or as I like to call it, the dick tank. Because if you know its weaknesses and strengths and stuff, you will know why. Plays up to only a tier 8. makes it very good for a TD frontal assault tank if you know how to hold down with it. It's one of those hold downs and side scraping tanks, but me personally, I like it, but I like a better version now. And you'll see later on that my favorite premium matchmaking tank is down the road, but this used to have been my favorite one. And it's still not a bad tank today, you just have to be really careful with it. But all in all, great matchmaking, keeps you out of the fucking nines. Very, very, very good to own if you want to play a TD heavy aggressor. Matilda Black Prince is basically a Matilda that only plays up to tier 6. This is actually not bad. It's basically like any Matildas that's premium. It's a tier 5 Matilda with basically a head of, kind of looks like the Knight kind of way. But it shoots really fast, and I actually like it. But the thing is, though, I don't play it anymore due to the fact of the Japanese heavies and how many people play these overpowered tanks now to where, like, the Bogatyr and stuff like that. It's not really overpowered, the Bogatyr, if you know how to kill it, like I do. But it's still monotonous to shoot premium sometimes at tier 6s like the OI if it's charging at you. And it's an okay tank to own. Frostbite. Frostbite is another premium tank that is another matchmaking tank that only plays up to 6. Well, actually, it kind of makes sense because I didn't personally like the Frostbite. I mean, the Frostbite is an okay tank to take out weak armor tanks, just like the Ripper, just like the T-14. It's designed to be a flanking, more aggressive, different way in flanking your maneuver and teaming up with people. It's basically an M4 with a weaker gun. It's not anything special in my opinion, but if you guys want something like that, you can have this or the Grizzly. Grizzly is the same thing without permanent camouflage. So if you want one with a Canadian leaf or one that don't, they both play up the same matchmaking. They only play up to 6. Now the Defiance, oh boy. The Defiance only plays up to 6, but oh my god, the Defiance, it's basically a stock Matilda, but I will review this one because this one is beyond horse shit. In my opinion, it's beyond horse shit because of how weak the damage does, and because it's like a Matilda. Matildas don't really survive well in a tier 5 unless you're with people or you know what the fuck you're doing. Now that doesn't say I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, it's just, it's still a hardest tank to play. I mean, if you like it, great. I mean, all power to you. All these things that I'm giving criticism on and don't like, it's my personal thing. You don't have to be one of me that don't like it or not. But yeah, this, I can't talk too much, but it only plays up to a 6. It's just below average in my opinion, but it's up to you guys to decide that. Excelsior or whatever the heck the British call it. Personally, my favorite tier 5 heavy British tank. Basically a fast shooting gun, same kind of head turret of the Knight, but more heavily armored in the front. Has the same fucking fast for shooting gun, a little bit inaccurate, but it plays up to a tier 6. Me personally, this is one of my favorite heavies for the British. It's balanced out in the front. It's actually terrifying in a tier 5 if you know what you're doing. Gun can be a little weak against other heavy tanks, but if you know how to use it, it's pretty damn decent to making money. Not the best probably making money because it's hard to shoot sometimes, but yeah, it's not bad at other things. Next up is probably the premium tier 6s that in the game that the British have to have. The TOG 2. The TOG 2 only plays up to a tier 7. It used to play up to a tier 8, but thankfully Wargaming made it reduce the tier. But me personally, I don't think reducing the tier was the biggest problem. This big hunk of fucking shit is only good if you have people with you. It's not good against anything else. If there's artillery, God fucking help you. Get obliterated so many times with fucking artillery, it's not even fucking funny. But if you want a slow-moving tank that will probably get you killed a lot, but unless you have friends that have it with you, then you can have it. I know a lot of people will probably like to talk in groups, but it's just, I I don't know. It's just, to me personally, I hate it beyond its guts. But if you like it, that's up to you. But it's a premium matchmaking tank that can actually have different matching. So that's pretty good. British Bulldog, on the other hand, has the same thing as well. It only plays up to a 7, and it's a tier 6 premium tank. Not bad. I mean, it only plays up to a tier 6. I mean, it only plays up to a 7, but it's a tier 6 with slow as ass kind of movement. Me personally, I like it because I know how to drive the Churchills, and they're not bad. This tank is not bad, and their gun penetration is not bad. And it only plays up to a 7. So, the thing is, though, like, when you look at this and look at the Japanese Heavy that I reviewed not too long ago, why couldn't it have the matchmaking these guys have? These guys only play up to, here, I'll show you, only up to a tier 7. So why does the Japanese Heavy only have those types of matchmaking? I don't know, but it's just, to me, it could have been so much more with the Japanese Heavy, but this one, not bad at all. If you want a forward aggressor heavy that shoots really, decent, this one's for you. AT-15A. I'm sorry, I had to look at the name again. This tank is equipped with the Black Prince's gun. I know Connor's gonna hate me for this, but it's one of the worst TDs I've ever fucking played. Connor has this, so he's just like one of my friends of mine. He loves this tank, but me personally, it's just so hard to keep it alive. And I will review this tank later on too, but I'm just saying my personal opinion, I hate this TD. I hate it. Hate it. But if you like it, that's fine. But to me, I absolutely wish, what the fuck? It should be just a tier 7 only tank, how bad it is. But I'll review it later on, guys, if you want me to review it. Now here's a tank that's not premium. Panzer I, which is the only tech tree tank that actually is one of the 4 tanks that play in its own tier. This tank is a tier 2 tank that plays in the tier 2. Personally, in my opinion, I can see why, because the gun can barely pen a fucking T1, a tier 1, for example. Can't even pen that easily with the fucking T22 Proto, I think, or T20 Proto. I don't remember the tier 1. I have to look at that again. But anyway, the gun can barely pen that. It can barely pen, like, some of its tier 2s. But I can understand it. But this is the only tank in the game, in the tech tree that you can research and get right now, that is only tier 2, that plays in the tier 2. So if you got a dickhead that plays T7 cars to troll you, well, now you can play this to basically get even with them. That's saying, I don't have to pay real money to get this tank. I actually get it. Unlike you, who has to pay money. Next up we have is the Rock. That's what I call it. No, it's the Panzer 2J. Why did I almost want to say 3J? Oh yeah, that's right, because we have a Panzer 3J, but we have a Panzer 2J. The Panzer 2J is basically a big, huge fucking piece of shit rock. That's all it is. But it has the premium matchmaking, so I have to put it in this thing. And dear God, when I review this tank, it's going to be nothing but cussing and swearing, because this tank is one of the worst tier 3 in the game, but I will review it to explain it why. Me personally, is to stay away as far as possible unless you just want to be a rock. A moving portable rock for them to block. Alright, next up we have is the Gross Tractor. Gross Tractor is a tier 3 premium tank that plays up to a tier 4. Now, the Gross Tractor is one of my favorite tanks. I mean, a lot of people hate this tank, but I personally like it. And I could review it later on, like I said. That it's not too bad. I mean, I want to get into details of these things. That's why I have to keep telling myself to don't review them. But all in all, the tank, I can understand why people hate it, but it is a premium matchmaking tank with a howitzer gun and everything else. Hey kids, if you like the Panzer 4s and you want to actually keep it a low profile tiers, then this Panzer 4 Hydra is just for you. I had to say that because there's so many people that like Panzer 4s in their own tiers back in the day. but they didn't want to go up against fucking Onis, fucking Tigers, and shit like that. This one is actually pretty good. Panzer IV Hydra is a tier 5, basically, tier 5 Panzer IV that plays only up to a tier 6, making it probably the only Panzer IV premium tank in the game, because there's another one, an anime version, that basically has the long barrel gun that only plays up to a tier 6. So this is a pretty good tank to own if you like the Panzer IV line to basically have the premium matchmaking. Next up, we have the Panzer V M10. I had to look at that again because usually some people call it the M10, and I'm like, what? I'm like, it's called Panzer V M10. It only plays up to a tier 8. It has a pretty good, decent gun for aiming at weak spots. You have to specifically aim at weak spots. The pen is bad, so you have to specifically aim for it. So like this and the Champion, unlike the Champion, hang on, is this one? Yep. This Champion, which I will do a review on tanks that have this, but it has multiple race to it. So you can have multiple, like you could train American and German in this tank. So this one's not bad to have. I actually like this tank because it's one of the best money makers. It's just you have to physically be careful what you're shooting at because the gun pen is beyond awful. But once you know it, it makes a ton of credits. Panther 88 is another tank that makes another credits. It's a tier 8 freaking medium tank that actually does play up to 9s, and it actually does pretty damn good. It has a sniper gun. It has that 88 that's able to pinpoint locations and pinpoint weak spots with a good, decent accuracy. Now, however, though, in my opinion, I love this tank. I love it a lot. It's one of my favorite medium tanks to just to, you know, if I don't want to brawl with anyone, to just sit back and just fucking snipe them in a distance. This is a tank for you. This is not a bad tank to have as well. Panzer B2 is another tank, one of the other top 4 tanks in the game that has the same matchmaking. It's a tier 4 heavy tank that only plays up to, you guessed it, tier 4s. This premium tank is one of my favorite because it kills anything that involves killing competition going on. It just kills them very quick. Now, I won't get into detail, but it just fires so fast that makes it very, very useful to have to kill a lot of tanks really quick in a competition. She's my personal favorite premium matchmaking stay in its own tier if it involves killing. It doesn't make money for a premium tank, but it just does its job for killing. I actually keep it like this tank a lot. Now, here's another tank that I like. The Tiger 131 is a tier 7 heavy tank that plays up to a tier 8. Oh, I can't wait to review this. This is literally my favorite premium matchmaking tier 7. As you can tell by the freaking 9 stripes on it, yes, I've 3 marked it. Thank you if you leave a comment on there. This is literally my favorite Tiger in the game. This is probably the only Tiger up to date to this video that a Tiger that can only play up to 8s, because every Tiger in this game only plays up to 9s, like they could play up there, which sucks because going against an E75 with a Tiger's gun is a little tricky. So this one is like, okay, I like this one because it's just like, oh, let's pick on the Tiger 2s. They're okay to fucking mess around with if you know what you're doing. I'm not saying these are gods. I'm just saying if you're a good driver. Next up is the Stug 4. Now the Stug 4 is basically a premium version of the Stug 3. This one was an actual real life tank, but I don't want to get into too much detail of that. It basically has side skirts, and it's a tier 5 premium tank that plays up to 6, making this tank very quick firing. But the problem is with this tank, in my opinion, it cannot kill things at long range easily. Even though it's just labeled as a TD, it's a fast diarrhea shooting TD. So it's a tank if you want to have it, if you want to shoot something really fast, but you won't make as enough money, in my opinion, compared to most tanks. So yeah, this is a tank if you want to keep as a collector or to kill things. It's fine to make money, decent money, but it's not great. Now, the hidden tank is basically the same thing. It's basically the tier 5 that only plays up to 6. However, the difference why I like this one a little bit more than the Stuke 4 is this one has the best camouflage rating in a tier 5. It goes right up to like almost 79. So with camouflage on it, it goes up to nearly almost 83, making it really hard to hide. However, it suffers the same thing. It has that gun that can't really shoot a lot of heavy armored tanks, so you're not going to do a lot of killing with it, and you're not going to make a serious amount of money with it, but it's decent to make money in it. So it's another TD that has preferential matchmaking that has the best hidden part in a tier 5 game, and, you know, aka it's named the hidden. You will kind of guess what it is. The E25 is another German tank that just recently has a premium matchmaking kind of decline. I mean, it might have played into a tier 8s. I mean, played in tier 9s before, maybe because of failed platoons. But, be honest with you, it's basically plays up to a tier 8 TD. And it's kind of funny because this TD is already labeled as the most trolling TD in the game with that fucking ridiculous gun, in my opinion. I've drove it. It is trollish. It's one of the most trollish TDs. So, if you want something to troll people, but you want to keep it only in a tier 8 if you play a 7, then this, my friend, you will enjoy quite a fucking bit. Next up we have is the Yaga Taiga 88. Now, this monster is basically have the whole armor of a tier 9, but the gun of a Tiger 1. Now, basically, in my opinion, this is literally the best money-making tank for TD players. Why? Well, you have to leave in the comment of me reviewing it. That's why. But literally, this tank has everything you need. Armor, frontal armor, good gun, well, not really good gun against heavily armored like tier 9s, but it does so much money. It's one of the top 5 tanks in the tech tree that you can get that is a lot of money. Next up, we have the Foch frickin' 50T and the Liberté. They're both the same tanks, this one with permanent camouflage. It's like basically the medium kind of plate style with a heavy, with a good fucking accurate gun and good pending gun. This is the type of people that want to play a tank that can shoot long range, shoot medium range, have teammates help you to help you kill a tank. This tank is a tier 8 that plays up to a tier 9, making this probably me personally, I didn't like it. But that's not my play style, but there's a lot of people that do, and I can't blame them. They have a good gun, good to everything, just not the armor. That was the only thing I didn't like about it, but it was not pretty bad. Alright, next up we have is the M3 Light. The M3 Light is a Soviet light tank that was given by the US. And then, no, I've already checked. This one does not let you train American crew. I am sorry, guys. It is basically a tier 3 that, believe it or not, only plays up to a tier 4. Making this light tank that if you like the M3s, this tank will give a smile on your face because it will keep you out of those fucking douchebags of a tier 5s and lets you play into tier 4s. So I will review it, but it was like, it's not a bad tank in my opinion. Alright, next up we have is the T126. The Baby IS-6, I call it. Baby IS-6 is basically a tier 3 light tank with angle armor that plays up to a tier 4. Now personally, I like this tank only against lights and mediums. If you go against a Matilda, you're fucked. If you go against a DW2, you're fucked. I mean, this tank is decent enough to play. I mean, it's fun. It's like one of those tanks you could pull out and play for a match and just play it for a little bit. So, yeah, this is a tank that you can have in your garage. Okay, next we have is the BTSV. Plays up to a tier 4, and it's one of the fast light tanks in this game that actually has preferential matchmaking. So if you're a fast driver and want to play something that's not really high tiers, the BTSV will be perfect for you. I actually like it, and it's worth it for any light tank driver. Next is the last premium matchmaking that plays in its own tier. This is the Valentine's 2. It actually plays up to a tier 4. It's a tier 4 tank. So yeah, this is like one of the 4 tanks in the game that literally just plays in its own tier. It's a not bad tank. It's one of those tanks that the gun is pretty crappy, so you have to work with it. But like I said, I have to explain another time. A32 is basically a tier 4 premium tank that plays up to tier 5s. Actually, I think it's tier 5s. Hang on. Yeah. A32 is a premium tank that plays up to tier 5s. It's a tier 4 tank with a howitzer gun. Really good tank to have if you want to go around shooting light armor vehicles with a howitzer gun. Not a pretty bad tank. It's very hard to drive it, but it's actually deep. Next up, we have the Matilda 4. Now, the Matilda 4 is basically the Matilda with the KV, basically the stock KV's gun. There's not much to explain about it. It's just different head armor, different design. It's just a Matilda for the Soviets. And no, you can't have British crew in this tank, so it's only just Soviets. So it's a tier 5 that plays up to a tier. Next we got is the GFG T-34, the Fighting Girlfriend tank. She's basically a tier 5 that plays up to a tier 6. Now, this one's pretty good too for people that are mediums. I reviewed it. I didn't like it. I personally don't like this tank, but I see people getting into this tank a little bit, so if you like it, that's fine. Me personally, it's not that really good of a tank to have, in my opinion, but that's my KV-220-2. Now, the KV-220 is a heavy armored tank. That's a tier 5 tank that plays up to tier 6. Has the tier 7 bottom half armor with the KV stock head on the top. Perfect for people that want to keep playing the KVs, but they don't want to go up against Tigers, but it's also like perfect for on the go, keep constantly moving, because the only way you can hit a moving target is usually the whole armor, but if the whole armor is tier 7, makes it a lot harder to pen this thing. So not a bad tank to have. I personally recommend it because it's a pretty good damn tank. Next we got is the Churchill 3. Now the Churchill 3 is a fast shooting heavy tank, basically like the British, but you can't put British crew in it. This is the Soviets. It's a tier 5 that plays up to a tier 6, but the gun and pen on this damn thing makes it perfect for both tiers. Probably making it the best tier 5 premium tank you could get in the tech tree up to date, due to the fact that its gun can now, it can pen through a lot of tanks, and with premium rounds can pen through the OI. It's actually pretty good to have in your garage. One of the best tier 5s to have. Next up, we got the Bogatyr. It's the same thing like the KV-220, just a tier 5 that plays up to tier 6. Has that unique perk and a unique little camouflage design. IS-6 and IS-6 Black, they are the same tanks. IS-6 Black and IS-6 play up to there are tier 8s that play up to a tier 9. They are shotgunning hillbillies. They literally go close range with a 122mm cannon up close to personal to people to basically shoot them with one specific shot that will do them so much damage, to 360 to basically almost 400 alpha damage if you get a high roll. This tank is perfect for a lot of people. I personally like this tank. This one was one of my favorite Soviets back in the day, and I would recommend for anyone who wants to get up close to personal and shoot people with extremely good head armor and good angle armor against tier 8 guns. Next up we have is the Gordnich. and the KV-5. Now the KV-5 and the Gornage are basically the same tanks, just one's with permanent camouflage and it's a Halloween special. The KV-5 is basically a tier 8 premium tank that plays up to tier 9s. It is literally, without doubt, one of the most hardest but also very interesting tank. The gun is kind of acts like a T-150 tank, the tier 6 line. And it just, everything else is like really hard to pen. It's one of those heavily armored tanks that you can't hit on the move easily that well, especially if he's angling. But they have traditional weak spots that are really hit the ball out of the bats, and I'll talk to them when I review this tank someday. Next up, we got the SU-76I. SU-76I is obviously, like the name suggests, it has a 76mm cannon, making it the most terrifying tier 3 in the game. One of the most devastating to low tier armors. This one is a recommend must own for a premium matchmaking tier 3. This thing just devastates anything. It's a tier 3 and even harms tier 4s. This thing could harm a Matilda. So if it harms a Matilda in a tier 4 game, you know you got a tank that you must own. I personally recommend having this in your garage. And it's very cheap too if you want to play low tiers, mess around, and also have a good killing tank to help you get kills on days that they ask you to do a lot of killing. Next up, it's the same kind of name, SU-85. Now this one is the same basic destructor design of the tier 3, but however, my personal thing, I didn't like it because it downgraded the armor a little bit. Not to mention, it has the 85mm cannon, so it's designed to snipe pretty easily. But the problem is with this tank, it does not do well in a tier 5 game unless you hide it pretty well, making it somewhat average tank to have. It's not that great to have it in your garage, but if you have it and you enjoy it, that's fine. But to me, it could be better. It could have been better. But it's another one of those tanks that has premium matchmakings. Alright, moving on up to the Chinese now. The T-34-3 is a medium tier 8 that goes up against tier 9s. Like it plays up to tier 9s. Armed with a 122mm howitzer, pretty much cannon. I call it a howitzer because it acts like a howitzer. And it basically has no gun depression, but it has the head armor of a angle slope roundness and the bottom half of basically a Type 59. Now this is the same thing as the T-34 Black. So yeah, it's basically the same thing. I really don't mind these tanks, but people are gonna really hate me for this. I hate these tanks. Not because of how they will kill me and it's because they suck, honestly. There's no gun depression on these tanks, and I can't get into detail with it. All bottom line, in my opinion, I didn't like them, but if you like them, that's fine. If you want me to explain how much it's bad, just leave a comment on them. All in all, it could have been a great tank, but not my cup of tea. Alright, next up is the Type 59. Type 59 is a tier 8 Chinese premium tank that's rare, that plays up to a tier 9. Now, the Type 59 used to have been a great sniper, hold down, jack of all trade kind of tank. However, due to updates, they made the gun a little bit harder to aim, the speed reduced, and basically all this other shenanigans that I could explain later on. This tank, in my opinion, was good back in its day. It's still worth it for people, but you have to drive with a lot of them. But it's a very hard tank to play now because of all the recent updates and changes and stuff. But it's still not a bad tank to drive. Next up, oh good God, the 112. The 112 is a Chinese heavy tank that is basically a tier 8 premium tank that plays up to tier 9s. Armed with a 122mm cannon howitzer, it's basically that. I really want to say much about this. I really fucking do. I really, 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 really want to talk about this tank. But I can't. My personal verdict, stay as fucking far away as possible from this tank. But if you haven't like it, kudos for you. But I've two marked it, so I will say what the fuck I want when I get to that review. But, oh, you have no idea. Next tank. Moving on to the Japanese, we have a Tier 5 Chinyukai. Chinyukai is basically a Tier 5 premium tank that plays up to 6. Now, Chinyukai is armed with that deadliest gun, pretty much a 7.5 centimeter cannon. Yep, 7.5. I had to look back at it because I could tell by the length, but I want to make sure. It's basically what you expect, a sniper medium tank that goes around flanking. This you definitely have to own. There's no question about it. This is the only Tier 5 that was in the past that can actually fight in the tiers that it is. It has that unique 7.5 gun that could do humongous damage on your own tier and able to depend on any other tier. However, I'm only saying this to people that like driving flanking maneuver tanks. Do not get this if you don't like flanking. If you want to be an aggressive brawler, then this is not your tank. But for people that like to hide and keep cover, this is a tank for you because it has that devastating gun. Next is a Japanese tank. We have the STA-2. And we have STA-2 Black Edition. Or is the Sentinel, which is STA-2. There's 3 of the STA-2 lines, which, oh my god, Wargaming, what the fuck was you thinking? Anyway, it is a Tier 8 premium tank that plays up to Tier 9s, and it is armed with the 90mm rifle gun, which is really good for long range distance. However, due to the fact of its good gun and quick reloading, it has to fucking hide due to the fact of the weak armor. Personally, I don't mind these tanks. I think they're fun to play if you don't want to, goof around and stuff. But my personal opinion, I would have liked it, but if it had more armor. I mean, this thing it's like bad as the CDC. It's like gets hit, loses like 2 modules, and like that's it. You're done. Next up is a non-premium tank. It is the Type 95. The Type 95 it's a Tier 4 premium. See, now I'm saying premium tier. It is basically a Tier 4 that plays up to Tier 5. But however, the reason why it has this good matchmaking compared to all its other predecessors where Tier 4s play up to Tier 6 is because of how bad the gun is. I personally didn't like this tank when I first saw it. It was just beyond crap. The armor is beyond shit. The gun itself is a howitzer kind of accuracy. I would just get through it as fast as possible, guys. You don't need to keep this tank in your garage for matchmaking rules. Just trust me. Get the fuck as far away as possible with that tank. Sorry, guys. I forgot a couple of the tanks. Another tank, DW2. German Tier 4 that plays up to a Tier 5. DW2 is designed to be basically a hold-down armor tank in a Tier 4 game with a long barrel gun. Now, you start off with a small barrel, which is good against weak armored tanks, but not good against heavy armored. That's where the long barrel comes in and gives you a little bit better edge against heavies if you know how to pen them. Me personally, it's not a bad tank. It's average. It's not a really best tank to have as a premium, as matchmaking rules. But it could have been a little bit better. But then again, I'm more afraid of what they would ask to do on it because if you put more in it, they'll give it more matchmaking upwards, and that won't be a good thing, would it? So it's average. And then finally, the last tank that I know that has matchmaking changing rules is the B1, the French Heavy. B1 is a Tier 4 that plays up to a Tier 5. Now, just like the Panzer B2, the Panzer B2 stays in its own tier. This one gives you a better gun to fight with against most tiers, but it only plays up to a Tier 5. making this heavy probably really good to have when you have people like like a last tank I just revealed, the DW2, and this tank playing together if you need to. So that's it, guys. That is all the matchmaking rules in this, pretty much this thing. There is literally a total of, if you go to favorites, plus the 2, there's a total of 66 tanks in the game that have premium matchmaking rules, which to me, it feels a little less. They should have added more, but thanks to these new developers that basically say, well, we can't do that anymore because we want tanks to go 2 tiers higher now. We don't want premium matchmaking rules no more. It's kind of sad. I mean, when you got all this variety of tanks, it was just those 66 are the only one they got lucky enough to be in matchmaking rules. So yeah, guys, thank you for watching this little short video I've done. And please leave in the comments if you want me to review some of these tanks, like some of them, because I wanted to review them. I kept saying that, and I'm sorry, guys, but I wanted to review them so bad, but I couldn't because I want to do special videos for them, special acting. I can't just flat down just come out and just review it. I have to wait for it. So it just, there was a lot of them I wanted to talk about. But regardless, thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped you out of showing what tanks you could play that have premium matchmaking, so that way you could play matches that don't go 2 tiers higher, and that way you will have a better gameplay, because that's what we all really want. We want a tank that just doesn't go up to too high of a tiers. They want to play like only 1 tier high in every matchmaking thing. So there you have it. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you comrades in the next video. Bye, guys.